The Bones and Bobbins podcast is now on Patreon.
Woohoo!
Would you like access to bonus episodes, digital extras, exclusive merch, and more?
Mm-hmm.
Join us in the Curiosity Shop at patreon.com/Bones and Bobbins.
Your generous support helps make the show happen and will also earn you our very eternal gratitude and entry into our private Patreon-only Facebook group where all the fun people are.
For sure. It is the most delightful, drama-free little Facebook group on Facebook. And I will thumb wrestle anyone that says otherwise.
Thumb wrestle?
Yeah, I'm feeling feisty.
All right. In a dusty old shop on a forgotten old street, you'll find two witches with books 3 boxes deep. Next to rusty old needles and faded red thread, you'll come in for yarn, but leave with pigments instead. Whether poisons or patterns, we're always discreet, where creepy and crafty and morbidity meet. Welcome to the Bones and Bobbins podcast. Hello, morbid makers. We are your slightly creepy,
Mildly disconcerting,
somewhat sinister,
delightfully discomposed,
opaquely odd,
merrily morbid,
marvelously misanthropic hosts.
and this is Bones and Bobbins, Season 4, Episode 1, You Can Be the President, I'd Rather Be the Pope.
And now it's just stuck in my head. I'm Haley from Red Handled Scissors and the Very Serious Crafts podcast, which is currently on indefinite hiatus. I go by she and her.
And I'm Natalie from Ubudork Designs, an official true crime creative, and my pronouns are she and her.
Yay!
Woohoo!
All right, so how are you? What's going on?
What's going on? Happy New Year. Happy Friday the 13th, which I deem a lucky day.
It is a lucky day. We're willing it to be so. Although actually it generally is pretty lucky.
So mote it be.
Yes.
I have a head cold, in case you can't hear. Our whole house has a head cold right now, which is interesting as we haven't really gone anywhere. Eldest is home from college, still on break, which has been nice. It's been nice to have my babies together under one roof. And we've done some good bonding, including we did charcuterie board / vision board night. We did our vision boards and goals for like the year and stuff.
Nice.
I love the new year. I always feel like I have my shit together for like all of 60 seconds. And then life is like, you thought you had that plan.
Life in the form of me this time, at least today.
That's. But you are delightful.
Yes, but I did like Kool-Aid Man crash into any structure that we might have had.
That's fine. You're fully allowed. Like, I love you, so you can Kool-Aid crash or whatever, and I'll be like, cool. But, yeah.
I appreciate that about you.
Yay! So, I have not started the cast on for my socks yet. Because I was waiting to do the whole, hi, I'm gonna, like, cast on and do, like, a craft thing, and I did the poll in the Patreon group, and I was on it for like a minute, and then the holidays and all that stuff happened. But I haven't not forgot about it. My goal for this year is to basically fuck it, just do the thing. So fuck it, knit the socks. Fuck it, do this art, this craft, whatever.
Although I do recommend casting on before you try to do a craft night.
That's my goal. Like, I was gonna cast on and have just a couple rolls done, so I don't. Nobody.
Because if you're doing a stretchy cast on, that's gonna need some
concentration.
And not like hardcore concentration, but it's not like your normal cast on.
Right. So my goal is to not overthink the way that I overthink everything, or over research, which, I mean, obviously for the podcast, it's lovely to over research, but like, I don't need to spend an hour researching what replacement charging cable for the iPad is best. Like, just as a random example.
I highly recommend just going to the wire cutter and searching it, because they always know.
Yeah. See, I need to just trust my gut and my instinct and not, like, spend so much time and energy worrying about things that I don't need to be putting so much worry into.
Well, there are some things that, like, as long as it is a safe cord, it doesn't really matter if it's the best cord.
Right. That was, like, just an example. Like, obviously, there's certain things that I'm going to spend more time researching but, like, I will overthink anything that has to do with something for myself, for the most part. Or, like, I will have all the craft supplies and just not pull the trigger on doing the thing, and I just need to do the thing. Like, I just need to do the thing.
I mean, same.
And I've given myself the goal of doing one thing per month that I have been wanting to do and just haven't done.
I like that.
So that's my goal. That's where I'm at the moment. Eventually I'm going to redo my business logo.
Ooh.
I need to work on my own personal page, because I'm my own brand, blah blah blah. Okay.
Uh-huh. How do you really feel?
I'm not good at that. But yeah, so there's, stuff that I want to work with in terms of that. Yeah, cats are great. Ron Swanson is, like, all up in my face snuggler now. Aww. Like, I could not be more delighted. He will come, like, in my, like, chin, like, head under my chin, up and just snuggle down, and it warms my heart. That makes me very happy. We just had his 4th annual gotcha day. So he has now officially spent more time with us than not with us, which makes me happy.
So his gotcha day must be almost the same as Biggie's.
It's January 3rd, I think. I have to go back and look.
Biggie's is December 27th.
Yeah, so they're right around, which is funny.
But also 4 years ago.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, because they're very similar. I like that. I think they'd be buddies.
I think they would be too.
So yeah, that makes me happy, because he went through 4 different homes, and was in the Humane Society for, like, more than 6 months, because they were trying to clearance sale him back in August, the year before we got him. We got him in January. And he was literally half price. He was a clearance sale cat. And we walked in, and Eldest was checking on the kitten she had picked up that was in quarantine, and I saw him jump up on the counter, and I was excited because I noticed him on the Humane Society site, because he looked like he had seen some shit. Like, it was the most unflattering photo of him. And I was all excited, and I was like, oh, hey! And he came right at you and rubbed his head on me, and the ladies behind the desk were like, take him now. He hates everyone and everything. He hisses, he bites, he's just an asshole. Just take this cat, please. And I was like, but he's fine. Like, I'm just petting him, I'm like, but he seems fine, and they're just jaws on the floor, and, like, every day I would give him an update, and they're like, that's not the same cat. We don't know what shenanigans he's pulling, but thank fuck. And he just needed his person. He did, and from the first night, and he still does this to this day, like, he will walk me to the bathroom in the middle of the night if I have to get him pee. Like, even if he's not in my room, like, the second my foot hits the floor, wherever he's at, like, I can hear him, like, even running down the stairs, because he sounds like a grown adult running down the stairs, but, like, he will just to escort me to the bathroom to make sure that I am safe. And then he started, like, eventually sleeping in the corner of the bed, and it has taken that long for him to get to be in, like, all up in my face snuggler or on my lap snuggler. I can pick him up peaceful. He's still not, like, he won't do that with everyone else in the house necessarily, but
sure.
He tolerates them. He will yell at them. Like, he's a grumpy cat if you get in his, if you break up his routine. Like, he has a spot. If you move him from his spot, he's like, dude, this is my spot. You get your own spot. Or if they're like, if both girls are hanging out in my room in my bed, he just looks at me like, what are you doing? Why are there so many people in my bed?
Like, that is a fair question.
So yeah, that's everything with me. I guess, for the most part. How are you? What's up? What's happening? What's going on?
Well, I have not been properly medicated for months, and
Yay!
I am a hot mess.
Emphasis on that hot, though.
Thank you. Maybe when I shower, which is less frequently than it should be at the moment. Just being honest about mental health.
It's important.
But
especially this time of year.
So I am pretending to have my shit together at this moment. And I am also in the process of relaunching my personal Patreon.
Yay!
Which is, in case you want to go to there, although I have not finished updating it yet, it is patreon.com/redhandled scissors, which
surprise,
I'm sure is shocking to anyone.
Shock it all.
But I will be doing monthly pattern releases at different levels, and the main theme is going to be cozy but questionable. And
that's
it
me.
is yeah, and it's based or I guess inspired by my wonderfully haunted yellow Victorian. And the first pattern may or may not include the ghost on the third floor.
It is delightful. Are they all going to be cross-stitch patterns?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to figure out right now, because the version that I showed you is a larger, sort of more time-intensive version than my usual patterns for the books that I write. And so I'm also working on a version that is significantly more beginner-friendly, and I mean, the other one is beginner-friendly, but if you're not used to doing larger projects,
right, it could be intimidating.
It might be, but it's the same basic design, just scaled down. And I'm also working on a very beginner-friendly, or maybe a less time-intensive monthly tier called Just the Cats, Ma'am. And if you are not old enough to know who Sergeant Joe Friday is, I cannot help you. But so yes, there will be a Victorian-style portraiture of cats, I believe. So
Love it.
Yeah, so I'm planning on launching that by month's end, and then doing a monthly release.
That's
So,
exciting.
yeah, so if you want to sign up this afternoon, actually, I'm going to update the tiers to reflect what is actually on offer now. Right now, I believe it's just a photo of Mr. Big Stuff.
Nice.
Which you could also have. But anyway, so I'm working on that, which has been an interesting journey given my current state of mental health.
I'm proud of you. That's a big taking, and you're kicking ass on that.
It's small victories is I'm not great at small victories. I'm kind of an all or nothing sort of person, and I'm trying to be better at allowing small victories to add up instead of waiting to pull the trigger on something until I have the time and mental energy to complete it, because that is simply not my reality right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know when it will be my reality because my
pairs with
medication's been screwed up for months. So
that kind of mirrors my overthinking until I actually do the thing.
yeah, exactly. And so we will be good support.
Yes, we will.
Yes. Oh, did I tell you about how excited the parlor ghost was for my Christmas Eve prep?
Oh, no, you did not.
All right. So, quick ghost story. I hosted family Christmas Eve at the Victorian. And it was actually kind of neat because the first floor of the house is literally made to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't appreciate how well it worked with a larger group of people until there were a lot of people in it and I was serving a meal and there were like sitting areas for people to be, and like the flow of the place is, I mean, I knew that it was made for entertaining. It's got a double parlor. I mean, it's supposed to be. But I hadn't seen it in action. And so it was kind of neat to see the house as it was intended to be used.
That's awesome.
And so in preparation for that, and now I'm going to spill a dirty little secret, literally. So we have hardwood floors, and we have 3 stories of hardwood floors.
A lot of hardwood floors.
Yeah, and so though I have absolutely like broom swept and Swiffered the floors, I had not until a couple days before Christmas actually fully Murphy's oil soap
I was gonna
in
say
water
you
mopped.
busted out the Murphys.
Yeah. And so I decided that it was time, and oh boy was it gross. In my defense, we've just had 1 million construction workers in and out of our house, so mopping has been a losing battle. But so I finally did like the whole first floor, and I was feeling really pleased with myself, but also very tired because that's a lot of square footage. And so I sat down just for a second in the parlor just to, take a quick breather after finishing the mopping. And I think I've mentioned before that there are prisms and bells and chimes that are hanging all over my house that were here before I was, that I have just left in place because you leave that stuff alone. That's just how that works. And so there is a small wind chime at the bottom of the main stairs. And our ceilings are very tall, so nobody can reach these chimes from below. And I don't think you could actually reach them from above either, because I don't think the arms would actually reach that far from the top of the staircase. And so it's just in a really awkward spot. You need a ladder if you're going to dust it. And I had never heard the chimes actually make any noise. And, like, even with airflow, like on Halloween when we were opening and closing our main door pretty frequently, I'd never heard them. And so as I'm sitting there just taking it all in, enjoying my clean, freshly mopped floors, that chime started to ring.
They're like, thank you.
And it was like, it was lovely. It was just a happy tinkling sound, and then the whole parlor felt like it was smiling.
Aw, that's awesome.
And there's a parlor ghost. I don't know her name or anything, but she likes to follow my mom around. But I think she was excited that I was preparing to have a party.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that the fact of me getting things ready to use the house for what it was made to do made her very happy.
That makes sense. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, and so the whole time I had family over, it just, the house felt very happy.
I love that. Yay!
Yeah, so that is my current situation.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
So now I think would be a good time to take a quick little break and thank all of our fantastic Curiosity Shop members over on the Patreon with a special, totally normal, and not at all creepy welcome to our newest members, Hallie from the Morbid Curiosity Podcast, and my amazing friend, Diana.
Why, hello, both of you. You are the best. And we would totally go explore our hidden old graveyards in the woods with you.
Even in winter. It's cold out.
Yeah. And as a side note, I have listened to the Morbid Curiosity podcast for a long time. So
I added that to my queue so quickly, and I cannot wait to dive in and catch up.
Yeah, it's very, very good. If you're looking for an additional podcast about sort of weird, creepy history. Solid. Nice. Yeah. So.
Yay! And if you want in on this fun, not only will you get some really great secret surprises, you will also get a huge backlog of Patreon-only episodes. We're talking true. Well over 50.
More than 50.
Well over 50. So, and that's where you get...
Yep, just waiting for you.
And there you'll hear some more raw stuff. There's 2 episodes, I believe, that I have Offspring on. There's some bloopers. There's some, you get to hear the cats. It's a little less edited and a little more real and raw, so you get to hear some personal stuff, I guess, and know more about us than
yeah. And I think my mom talked about seeing UFOs.
Yes.
Like,
it was the Mother's Day. Wasn't it like a Mother's Day episode, I think?
Oh, probably.
But yeah.
I don't know. Was it when I think it was when I first moved to the house. Oh, no, it was before I moved.
Right, because when she was there last, we didn't manage to get her on the podcast. You were still in New York then.
No, she was busy floating in the pool.
Rightfully so. So, yeah.
Yep, using a school uniform belt to tie herself to the, tie her floating lawn chair, her very 80s floating lawn chair, to the ladder in my
Brilliant.
pool.
So yeah, you get the Facebook group, you get Patreon, you get all these episodes. You get to join in on the craft stuff that I'll be doing, because that's going to be like a scheduled thing more often. And yeah.
Well, good, because I'll be stitching a lot of things.
Like, just, I think that...
And now is the time when book deals happen, the moment I fill my schedule. So
may they come up lately.
You never know.
Plus, it's also a good way to...
Not that I'm complaining.
If you've got a touch of the seasonal depression, or just get real mopey after the letdown of the holidays, or just dealing through the holidays, you got two fellow weirdos who also are, I understand.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Understand, and you can hang out with us. And there's more in the group too, that we speak very openly about mental health and just yeah,
because it's important.
Very much is,
and it's not embarrassing. Right. It's just
seriously. I take my mental health medications the same I would take my allergy medications. It's all valid, and sometimes you need help. So, yeah.
If I could have all of my mental health medications at the same time, it would be super.
Poor lady.
Oh, why did I move to the ass end of nowhere, Vermont?
Because wonderful.
I long for a Brooklyn pharmacy.
Oh, just wait. You can wait till you hear about the Vatican pharmacy.
Could the Vatican pharmacy get me my medication?
The Vatican pharmacy can get you anything, and if they can't get it for you, shit, they got a robot that'll make it. But we'll get to that later.
Ooh, a compounding robot.
Yeah.
Cool.
So right. Join us.
Well, yeah, so speaking of the Vatican, we are going to be talking about baffling things about the Pope, papal artifacts, and the Vatican. Because Pope Hammer.
Seriously.
Yeah. So
and dead Pope on TV.
This is...
Whoa. And
what?
dead Pope on TV.
I don't know why you're so freaked out about that.
I was afraid to just...
Don't you remember when Pope John Paul II
died? Not really, because I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big Catholic fan, but I just...
No, me neither.
I guess I don't remember that. I don't know if I just didn't pay enough attention. I just know that all of a sudden I was like...
It was a
that is
whole
a close-up
thing.
on a fully dead man right there. Just on the news. Just dead. Just hanging out.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I can't wait to hear about the
true.
Pope Hammer.
Yeah, so this is in no way an exhaustive accounting of anything papal, because
it could be its own podcast.
Literally.
Like,
yeah. It is its own podcast several times over. But I just thought, since we've all heard about Pope Hammers recently, I thought I was going to take, a little fun wander down the alleys of History Channel Pope documentaries and talk about the seriously weird shit that happens to and in the vicinity of the Pope. Sounds harmless. Sounds cute.
I thought the same.
But big yikes. Yeah. I instead entered the circle of hell that is... I didn't even mean to make that joke.
It's well done.
Thank you. That is fact finders, in all of the finger quotes, that lurk in that weird area where the far right and the far left meet.
I was
so
agog at the amount of fucking Joe Rogan podcast episodes devoted to Vatican shit. I of course I did not listen to them. I couldn't. There was only so much, but
But he's just asking questions.
I was like, "Are you?" Yeah, and there was like a Glenn Beck one that I couldn't do it. Yeah, I was the I don't know. They don't have a group name like Vaticanites. It is interesting. The
collective noun of people who study the Vaticanologists.
Yeah, it is an interesting. I did not expect it.
I'm sure there's a Latin name for like papal scholars. Actually, my best friend from 7th grade was in a PhD program specifically about popes.
Wow.
So maybe, yeah. So he veered in a different direction. But maybe I'll ask him. But anyway, so like I said, big yikes. Like, we all know that there are conspiracy theories, because how could there not be? There is literally an entire genre of fiction that is devoted to the labyrinthian romps through papal storage closets. Like, just so many. I worked for a publishing house that had several on its list, and they weren't even those books. They were just of the genre. So the papacy is really solid at making sparkly esoteric mistakes.
It's so much.
I mean,
so much more delightful than I would have put it.
Well, it's not terribly different than the pageantry of any other, like, thing that looks sparkly and makes you feel magic. It's
the hats get me, man. The hats get me, man.
Ooh, I'm going to tell you about one of the hats later. So, what I didn't expect, or I guess I expected that actual facts about some of the weirder shit would be hard to track down, but I didn't think it would be as hard to confirm, like, the normal everyday happenings with regards to the Pope and the Papal Palace.
Yeah.
Like, I know that, like, with any head of state, and the papacy is an absolute monarchy, that there is a lot of keeping things under wraps so people aren't aware of, like, where someone might be at a given time or something like that. But it's extremely hard to just confirm things that should be facts.
Yeah.
So yeah. And since it's hard to actually confirm normal things, when you veer off into the mountains of religious pageantry and quirk that exist, which is all of it, good fucking luck. And
also, I'm just gonna say it, they are some shady motherfuckers, so it's hard to confirm a lot of shit. Like, they are really good at wielding the power they have to shut down whatever they want.
That is literally my next sentence. So Catholicism loves its pageantry and quirk, and also its questionable abuse cover-ups. Yep. So we all know that. And there are layers of nonsense upon layers of false piety upon what may have started out as very real piety. And certainly some people involved are indeed good people, and the actual overarching machine itself that is the Catholic Church, and specifically the Pope and the Vatican and the Papal Palace.
Yeah.
So here are two things that are definitely true. The entire thing is what I think the kids these days are calling messy. And also that I desperately want an invisibility cloak and a whole lot of time to kill in the Vatican.
Dear
Those
God,
two
yes.
You know how often, like as icebreakers or something, you get asked what superpower you would want to have? I would specifically want invisibility in and around the Vatican.
Yes. Hard agree.
Because please. I mean, A, it would be really funny to haunt the Vatican.
Definitely.
But also, what do they got in there? What do they got?
Miles and miles.
I mean, literal, because that is how parchment is measured in length, but different varieties. Anyway, not the point. So, before I go any further, I need to tell you something. Yes. I am not Catholic. And I wasn't raised Catholic. I was raised Christian, but I was raised in a Baptist church, which has its own. I was going to say,
when it comes to, like, I think...
I went to Jesus camp. I went to lots of Jesus camp. So, as with anything that we research where one of us does not have primary knowledge, I'm going to do my best, but I also am happy to accept corrections and issue updates as needed, or be pointed towards more weird shit. So,
also, if you are a devout Catholic and you're listening, it's nothing against you at all. Like, and I apologize in advance if you're offended by anything I say, because I was brought up Catholic. I am what I refer to as a recovering Catholic. So I am not as gentle. But that you have your beliefs.
But you're allowed to not be as gentle because it's yours.
I will still welcome you with open arms.
Oh yeah, I mean, I am a pagan witch, and I am fully aware that there are some really funny things about that, and things that don't make sense, and questionable activities, and, like, it doesn't bother me when people talk about it, and it doesn't bother me, I guess, as long as my intent is not to be malicious. Right. I'm just talking about weird things and swearing about things that probably would make people who are devout uncomfortable about me swearing. But yeah, anyway, I'm not Catholic. I mean no offense other than the usual amount of offense that I mean about most things. So anyway, right off the bat, I think we should address the shiny, deadly elephant in the room. The Pope hammer.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you're not slinging, if you're not singing Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer right now with me, I'm not sure if we can be friends. But if you happen to be too young, I have linked it below. It's a YouTube video, and the music video for the song is truly bonkers. And I, what? Somebody really liked drugs.
Oh, yeah.
But, in a Donnie Darko way, except happy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is. Okay, so USA Today, the favorite newspaper of hotel guests across the nation, has some disappointing news for all of us. I'm really sorry to say. So, we all saw the tweet, I assume, or a screenshot of it bouncing around the internet. Someone named Sophie Dublow tweeted, quote, "My favorite new factoid is that they hit dead popes on the head 3 times with a special dead pope hammer, just to ensure that they are, in fact, dead." And there's a photo of a very fancy hammer. It is a very fancy hammer. And that tweet went viral, and then someone screenshotted it, and then it went everywhere. And I really wanted it to be true, because that shit is wacky.
It's wacky, but still within the realm of that sounds like that could be a thing. It's wacky but believable.
It's the right kind of wacky for the Catholic Church. And, especially the pageantry of the Catholic Church. Symbolism, man. So, I just don't want to break anyone's heart.
Oh, no.
But, despite the church's well-deserved reputation of going way over the top weird, this seems to be a gift of many centuries of playing telephone. So this isn't the first time that this as an idea has gone viral. It's just the first time that the internet has been involved. So USA Today's rating is false. And, quote, "Modern means are used to determine if a pope has died, according to credible news reports." They did not say which credible news reports. Although, actually, they did cite an entirely massive list of sources. So it's possible that they did tag them, but they did not say in this who's credible. I want to know. Tell me who's credible. Anyway, tapping a deceased pontiff's head with a hammer is not mentioned in any official documents related to the process following a pope's death. The hammer pictured in the social media posts was used by popes in the ceremonial opening of a holy door.
What? What do you use the hammer for? How do you open a door with a hammer? Okay.
I'll get there. The Pope is not breaking down.
Not with that thing. It's too green.
I'm sorry to disabuse any of you of that mental image. But to further quote the article, with facts boosted by a theology professor at the University of... All right, we're going to use the American pronunciation since this is that university. The University of Notre Dame. And it is, quote, "The claim that a hammer is used for tapping on the Pope's head is a legend though one that has been repeated countless times as early as the 1850s, says Ulrich Lehner, a University of Notre Dame theology professor. So it's the Victorians' fault.
The fact that it survived that long is... It feeds me. Like, I'm good. Like, the fact that it's not a thing...
Yeah.
Okay, that made me sad, but the fact that that rumor has lasted that freaking long, I'm good.
And it probably started before then, but the records pick it up in Victorian times. And so the origin of the claim is unclear, Lehner said. He pointed to a 19th century church history that said the Camerlengo, the official charged with acting as head of the Catholic Church upon the death of the Pope, would knock 3 times with a golden hammer on the door of the room where the Pope's body lays. The Camerlengo would also call out the Pope's baptismal name. Early histories don't mention that role for the Camerlengo or the use of a hammer at any point in the rituals, said Lehner. They instead refer to cardinals praying with the dying pope and the Camerlengo having additional duties such as inventorying the pope's room. Lehner said, if he had to guess, the hammer to the head rumor could have been an offshoot of people's fear of someone being buried alive. So, Victorians.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yep. And it's one of the most persistently repeated fake claims, he said. Even renowned historians have repeated it. The Reverend David Collins, an associate professor and director of Catholic Studies at Georgetown University, pointed to a 1996 document called Universi Dominici. Oh, hold on. More Latin. The Universi Dominici Gregis, issued by Pope John Paul II, that laid out the procedures for the death of a reigning pope. As soon as he is informed of the death of the Supreme Pontiff, the Camerlengo of Holy Roman Church must officially ascertain the Pope's death in the presence of the master of papal liturgical celebrations, of the cleric prelates of the apostolic camera, and of the secretary and chancellor of the same. The latter shall draw up the official death certificate, reads the document. The document does not make any mention of how the Camerlengo is to, quote, ascertain the Pope's death. There is no reference to a silver hammer, the calling out of the Pope's baptismal name, or the smashing of rings and seals in the document, said Collins. And we'll get back to the smashing of rings later on. Collins cautioned that striking the Pope's head or calling out his baptismal name, quote, could take place as a matter of custom, but they are not part of the official procedures after the Pope's death. So he's just poking at us. He's like, I can't say it doesn't happen. Like,
you
man,
know, tapping him with the hammer to make sure he's dead makes more sense than using a special hammer to knock on a door.
We'll get there. When Pope John Paul II died in 2005, his death was confirmed with an electrocardiogram.
Okay.
According to reports at the time, which I think is, generally speaking, one of the more common methods of confirming someone is no longer with us. All right. So moving on to the actual use of the hammer. Lehner said the pictured hammer was used to open a porta santa, or holy door. holy doors are opened in Jubilees periods of forgiveness on the church calendar. The last such period ended in November of 2016, and the next is scheduled for 2025. Traditionally, the Pope marks the start of the Jubilee by opening a holy door, according to a Vatican document about a Jubilee that took place in 2000. This is typically done by knocking 3 times on the door with a hammer.
Okay.
Is it wrong that I want to make a knocking on heaven's door joke here? Because
no, that's highly appropriate.
I mean, I feel like maybe the hammer was used. It was just knocking on a different door, if you know what I mean. Anyway, USA Today has a whole list of their sources for their fact check should you want to learn more than you ever needed to know about Pope deaths. All right. Second, also, strange thing that I did not know about popes. Did you know that the Pope has a tiara?
A tiara?
Yeah.
No.
Because he totally
That's
fucking
amazing.
does. Yeah. So the current incarnation hasn't been used since the swingin' 60s. 1960s. But it exists in all of its sapphire, ruby, and emerald encrusted glory.
Wow.
In fact, popes as early as the 8th century may have worn a version of it, because the Pope is, in fact, a monarch. And though I tend to think of tiaras as dainty, in this case, it actually refers to the entire headpiece, which has included combinations of crowns, circlets, and diadems.
That's some serious headgear.
Yeah, many combinations thereof. It kind of looks like a beehive, honestly. The current 3-tiered version stemmed from the 14th century and has its own fancy names, because I think maybe tiara was...
Probably shot that down.
I mean, it is still officially called that. So, but it's sometimes called the trirenum.
Okay, try, because it's 3.
So that must be our Latin. Yeah. The triple tiara. And it does have 3 crowns stacked. So it does kind of
not
make sense.
excessive at all.
No, but it's also called the triple crown. So I feel like the 1960s Pope was like, nah, dude, we're calling it the triple crown.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know that, but I'm just guessing. So from 1443 to 1963, the papal tiara was placed on the Pope's head during a papal coronation. The oldest surviving tiara is from 1572. Wow. So I don't know what happened to the previous ones, but I think there probably has just been an awful lot of combining over the years. Yeah. So I'm not sure. But that 1572 tiara is not involved in the current one. So there's a whole world of additional histories behind the papal tiaras, but honestly, I thought most of it was kind of boring without further context, and I'm not going to become a papal scholar just to learn about the hows and whys and whens of the tiara getting progressively fancier, but I am fairly certain that there was capital D drama behind the scenes as it got more and more crown-like and more bejeweled. Because it did not start out
I'm telling you, a lot of the Pope has become kind of the personification of power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. In a lot of ways. Like the whole...
Well, he is an absolute monarch.
Yes. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle that is the Vatican and everything that lies within is...
Yeah. And I actually saw a bunch of information that was really interesting on why it's so hard to prosecute anyone within the church. And it isn't necessarily the reasons that you would think. A lot of it has to do with the hierarchy and who reports to who, technically, and who is appointed who. And so it just gets very convoluted with regards to who reports to whom and how all of that works. I, again, am not a papal scholar, so I don't know those details. But know what I do know about? Antipopes. Yeah. So the current papal palace that is in the Vatican is called the Apostolic Palace. And it's the official residence of the Pope right now. And it's also called the Papal Palace, the Palace of Sixtus V, and the Palace of the Vatican, among many other things, because heaven forbid we give a thing a name. Yep. But wait, there is a second palace.
Yes.
So, Le Palais des Papes. Des Papes. In France. So, Rome was having a violent and chaotic era during the 14th century. And so the 14th century popes were like, fuck this, and went off to Avignon in France. And there, they lived in what was basically a medieval fortress and palace. And it has been expanded and changed, and parts of it have been razed, and it's had a chaotic history because, you know, different popes had different requirements in their lives.
Okay. Different decorating tastes.
Yeah. So I've been to this particular papal palace, and first of all, the town that it's in, like, it's still kind of walled. There's all manner of, like, teeny tiny weird shaped buildings made of stone.
Oh, wow.
And, like, it's very cute. It's one of those places, you know how when you visit someplace, like, I think people do this in New York a lot, where you look around and imagine what it must be like to live in that apartment above the store in this particular place. I did a lot of that. I think that this place also was where I went to a museum of iconography.
Fun.
Yeah, it was really cool. But the thing that I remember most is standing inside, I think it would have been the inner keep of the medieval Gothic castle. And it had the largest fucking fireplaces I have ever seen. Like, so my house is big. But one of these fireplaces, you know what, let's back that up. One of these fireplaces was about as long as my apartment in
Oh,
Brooklyn
wow.
was. And way about as tall as maybe the building.
Oh, wow.
And I think I'm probably exaggerating that a little bit, but I for sure have pictures of me standing next to it and kind of in it. And I don't know, I find these things to be fascinating because, I mean, there is anywhere that's been a fireplace has years of soot build up, and like, this is a medieval fortress.
Oh, yeah.
Just think about standing on that place in stones that have been there for that long.
That is really cool.
And that was where, like, cooking was
Yeah.
happening and stuff like that. And that's why it's so fucking huge. I mean, also probably because sometimes it gets a little chilly. But, I mean, this is the south of France, so could be worse. But yeah, so anyway, so the 14th century popes, they chilled in this ridiculous palace, fortress, medieval, Gothic monstrosity, with various additions.
Their version of Versailles.
And except it's, I mean, I guess parts of it are beautiful, but it's a castle. It's a medieval castle. And so a lot of it's very utilitarian. Yeah. So, like, climbing up turrets with that are going a certain way so your sword wouldn't get stuck. Like weird shit like that. And I mean, I know that I'm American, and we, with the exception, the very large exception of every major thing that indigenous populations have created and white people have knocked down. So I suppose we could go to some Mayan areas if we want to stay in the Americas and get that old. But we don't have, like, castles chilling. And so I just found it to be fascinating that a pope would need or even want that. But it also, like, it's the 14th century, so it needs to be a fortress. It's entirely possible that someone will come and try to take the papacy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially given the, it's not just religious leadership, it's a little bit more than that.
Oh, yeah, which is where we get the antipopes.
That's my new favorite word. Yeah.
Yeah, so, when the seat of the papacy would eventually move to, the Vatican, which is where it is now and has been for quite some time, there were still, apparently, in as varied, I guess, as wide a time frame as between the 3rd and mid-15th century, sometimes there are antipopes that lived there in France. So they're like, whether it be by schism or whether it be people who just had a critical amount of support and disagreed with who the current pope was. Like, there were an awful lot of people having that happen, and sometimes it's not even necessarily clear who was the Pope and who was the antipope at any given time. Yeah, it's chaos. And I simply, this is the part that I would need to have so much more background knowledge to even talk further about it. So I'm just going to leave it at sometimes there were antipopes, and sometimes those antipopes lived at the second papal palace that is in France that I have been inside. But also some legitimate popes in the 14th century also lived there. And
all right.
What even is a pope? What even is an anti-pope? Who gets to decide? I don't fucking know.
Not me.
Nope. Certainly not us. Anyway, so popes and anti-popes. That is as far as I'm going to go down. If someone who's listening happens to have that as, like, I don't know, an autistic special interest, I say, because I have autistic special interests, and has gone down that rabbit hole, please excitedly tell me about it. Because I want to go down that rabbit hole, but there's just so much of that rabbit hole. All right, so I feel like we've talked about crowns. We've talked about houses. I mean, in the loosest sense. So maybe we should talk about some... Oh, and hammers. We've talked about those, too.
Yes.
So let's talk about some bling.
Yes.
Now, I've been thinking about papal signet rings.
Yeah.
And wondering, like, so you know how signet rings have, in general history, been passed down from titled father to titled son?
Yes.
Down through history. And it has seemingly been the same ring. Which I guess kind of makes sense because genetically maybe you would have similar sized hands or something. I don't know. But I was thinking that popes come from all the fuck over the place.
They really
and they
do.
vary greatly in size. And how old is the signet ring? And does it get resized for every pope? Like, can you imagine a piece of jewelry, like, from the 8th century that has been resized?
Right? Trying to resize
every
that?
time there was a new pope?
They probably have a papal jeweler to handle it.
They do. Well, it turns out that whenever there's a new pope, there's a new pope ring. And so I read an article about the goldsmiths that worked on creating the most recent papal ring and how
fun.
that works and then what happens to the former ring. Because
that was my question.
Yeah, and I wondered if they got buried with them.
That's
and
what I
still
would have
don't
thought.
know the answer to that.
Oh my god. Fucking Catholics, man.
Well, I mean, there were close-ups on the body. So.
Right, but that's just the body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't in the casket. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, so I don't know if you could see the hands or not. I didn't actually look at the procession for Ratzinger. What was his name? Benedict the 16th?
I just saw him laid out, like his head, just close up on his face. I was like, okay then. You can see the poor. So weird.
Yeah, Catholicism, man. They like their bodies. Like, everything.
There's a joke
like
in there.
Yes, but in the front of every church, there's a fucking bone. Like,
Yeah.
just to be there. So, I mean, you gotta have a bone to have a church. All right, I'm not gonna make that joke. Okay, so so when I was thinking about papal signet rings and do they pass them down, I remembered that people kiss the ring.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about the plague.
Oh.
So,
all the germs. Oh.
Yeah, and then I was thinking about COVID and all of the things. And just thinking about the layer upon layer. And I mean, I know that's not how metals work. You can wash them. It's
still.
But yuck. So I am relieved to know that new pope, new ring. And so the pope's ring has a name, and it's the same for all of the signet rings. And it's called the fisherman's ring. And it is also technically the official seal that is exclusive to the pope. And like when I say seal, if you're not familiar, I mean, fuck you, JK, but the Hogwarts letter seal, that's what we're talking
about. The wax.
The wax.
With the wax, right?
Stamp.
Yeah.
The stamped wax that seals the letter shut. And so that ring, and all signet rings, are made to do that. And so, because the fisherman's ring is individual to each pope, when Pope Benedict, who recently died, resigned, his ring also resigned. And
oh yeah, that's right.
And so this article, now this is kind of interesting. This is from a CBS article, so it's a very real news source, but
right.
It says two different things, and I don't know what's true, which is why I want to know if the ring is still on the Pope. The dead Pope, that is. So, because the ring has technically resigned, apparently, traditionally, the ring is broken with a hammer.
The papal hammer? The Pope hammer?
I want it to be the Pope hammer.
It should be the Pope hammer?
It's the Pope hammer. Because they didn't say which hammer, and I feel like you'd do it with a Pope hammer, right?
I mean, it's a very ceremonial-looking hammer. So
yeah, I feel like you'd do it with a ceremonial hammer. Except for sometimes the passing of the papacy wasn't exactly peaceful.
Yeah, no.
So, anyway. So, if it's destroyed with a hammer, I mean, I want to know where it went. Is there, like, some vault of squashed Pope rings in the Vatican somewhere?
Right.
Because that's a thing I want to know about.
Right.
But the vice president of the Roman Guild of Goldsmiths, Claudio Franchi, was commissioned to make the ring when Pope Benedict was elected. Pope Emeritus Benedict was elected in 2005. And he said that the reports of the ring, or that the ring will be destroyed, are a mistranslation of the Italian word biffattura, which means to cross out. And he said that the ring is marked with a cross on the upper part as a symbol of the end of the papacy, and that it's not destroyed. So that's a lot of specific information from the dude who literally made the ring. So I feel pretty accurate, or at least accurate at this moment.
Reasonably accurate, yeah.
So, the actual process of making the ring is really interesting to me. So I think each pope gets to choose the design of the ring, but I think it is, because it's called the same thing, it is also specifically depicting the same person, because the fisherman is Saint Peter. You know, the making.
I'm now having visions of the Pope scrolling through a catalog that looks like the class ring catalog.
Yeah, exactly. Did I ever tell you about the mistake that I made being a white girl who had never met anyone beyond 2 black people and 2 Asian people when I graduated?
No.
My class ring has the Muslim symbol, the star and crescent, on it. Because I always wore a ring that was my mom's in the 70s that had a crescent moon and a star on it, but doesn't look like that. And
okay,
I thought it would be cute if they matched, and literally not one person noticed.
Oh, wow. I mean, that tracks. I mean, it's Michigan.
Yep. So, whoops. Anyway, so I think all of the rings depict St. Peter, but I think that the individual pope chooses the style of the ring. So the Benedict ring was inspired by a Michelangelo painting. And the final concept of the ring, and this is from that CBS News article, required more than 200 sketches and colored drawings. And it depicts St. Peter, who is a fisherman, and carries the inscription Benedictus, and then the Roman numeral for 16, which is the Pope's official title in Latin. The elliptical shape represents the piazza in front of St. Peter's Basilica, and which was laid out by sculptor Bernini in the 17th century. The ring itself is 35 grams of pure gold.
Jesus.
And it took 8 artisans working 15 hours a day, 2 weeks to make it. 8 people working 15-hour days.
That's bananas.
For 2 weeks.
I mean, that's
fucking
excessive. I mean, yay for those people getting paid, and having work, but that's so fucking excessive. You know what I mean?
So it's... Yeah. So the CBS News correspondent, Alan Pizzi, asked the goldsmith, is the value of this ring the price of the gold, the work you put in it, or what the ring means overall? Which I think is kind of an interesting question.
That is an interesting question.
And Franchi said, the value of the time and the gold is nothing. It is effectively annulled by the strong symbolic power and the fact that it has been worn by Benedict XVI and that it tells a story that is the basis of Christian faith. It is also the product of skill passed on from father to sons and honed over a lifetime. As a Roman goldsmith, Franchi said, a papal commission was, quote, the highest point of my career.
Good for him.
Yep. And so the Vatican, and this is before the new pope took over, when the when Benedict resigned, the Vatican announced that the new Pope's ring will be as same as the old one, except for the name change, which I think is kind of in fitting with the reputation of, isn't the current Pope a Jesuit priest?
Possibly. He's more lax. Like, he's definitely more chill than...
I mean, less opulent, less waste.
Right.
It seems like. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
That is very interesting. And I think it's cool that he didn't, spend $1 bajillion on reinventing this one ring.
But it probably still took the artisans 2 weeks of 15-hour days.
Right.
But, so that's where I limited myself with regards to weird Pope things. Yeah. There's a world of weird Pope things left unexplored.
There is. It was hard. This was challenging for me to not rabbit hole deeply in so many different areas. Giving my issues as a recovering Catholic, in the past, I had pretty much avoided any research and learning about the bowels of its of its faith known as the Vatican.
Tell me how you really feel.
Because I had a feeling that it would just only fuel my distaste for it, and
I'm sorry that I was responsible for this.
No, it's fine, and it's actually. It is incredibly interesting, as interesting as infuriating as it is. And we are too, and I'm sure that our goal when we research and stuff and when we rabbit hole is not just for our own selves, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's for others to learn as well. So, what exactly is the Vatican other than where the Pope lives? For starters, the Vatican is a city and a country located within another city in another country.
Yeah, and it's a monarchy.
Yep. Sound confusing? Yeah, that's the theme. That's the entire theme. The area itself
turtles all the way down.
A very long history. With religion dating back to 64 AD, when it became the site of martyrdom of many Christians after the Great Fire of Rome. Now, there is more buildings than just... There's so many things. Like I think it's St. Peter's Basilica is actually built upon a graveyard. I mean, there's so much.
Oh yeah, there is
to all of these buildings.
A necropolis underneath. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the Vatican City, which is what it is referred to now, wasn't an official thing until 1929, thanks to, Mussolini and his signing of the Lateran Pacts, which allowed the Vatican to exist as its own sovereign state, and also compensated the church $92 million, which is more than $1 billion of today's money, for the papal states.
Wait,
the Vatican used...
Okay.
Yeah, the Vatican used the payment as seed money to regrow its coffers. Mussolini, the head of the Italian government at the time, the fascist dictator, signed the treaty on behalf of King Victor Emmanuel III.
On behalf of,
Yes, so just that fucking paragraph, you know that if Mussolini is paying the church that insane amount of money, that did not just be like, oh, hey, you can have this land and let me give you this money. You know there was shit attached to that.
Obviously.
Anyway, geographically, it is located in Rome, Italy, and it is the smallest country in the entire world. At 109 acres total, it is often cited every place. I don't know why they've chose this, but everyone likes to just cite it as being 1/8 the size of New York City's Central Park. To many...
I mean, Central Park is a big-ass park.
I
have gotten lost in Central Park.
Oh, yeah. It's got its own zip code and post office. Like, it's delightful.
I mean,
and that's
most neighborhoods in New York City have their own zip code.
Right. But to many, that reference doesn't mean much. So, basically, it is said that you can walk its entire perimeter in, like, 40 minutes. Now, obviously, that's...
Yeah, it's less than a quarter of a mile.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's like
That makes sense.
Oh, maybe it's 0.19 kilometers, actually.
I was going to say it's
small,
but
but it's not that
small. Right. Especially when you continue underneath, which is a whole nother story.
Well.
The estimated population in 2019 was 825 people. But citizenship, much like everything in the Vatican, works different than pretty much any other freaking country. There are no natural-born citizens of the Vatican. There are no hospitals to be born in. Now, that is their theory as to why there's no natural-born, but I'm like, dude, you can birth anywhere.
I was going to say,
but
I imagine someone has had a baby.
Right? The only way to become a citizen is to be issued a job within the country, and once that job is done, your citizenship is stripped from you.
Fascinating.
I don't know how that works in terms of, like, if then you could just bounce back to your... Because usually to become a citizen, it's probably a dual citizenship, like, situation. But it is governed by an absolute
you wouldn't
monarch.
have to renounce your citizenship elsewhere.
I would think not.
It was going to revert upon job loss.
Right.
I wouldn't think.
So, like we covered, it's an absolute monarchy with the Pope at its head. The Vatican mints its own euros, which are identical to, the regular euros, only with, fun people on it, like the Pope. It prints its own stamps. Yeah. Yeah, it's literally the same as euros.
Can you use them elsewhere?
I don't know.
Like, are there Pope euros circulating in, like, I don't know, the Italian Alps?
I would think it'd be impossible to not have them,
Well, I agree. I just find that fascinating. I don't know why.
Right? It is. They have their own stamps, which, again, so weird. And they even have their own passport and license plates. And also, I don't know, their own freaking media outlet. Yes. And they also have their own flag and their own anthem. They do have their own passports, like I said, and license plates, as well as their own banking system, which I will get to.
Oh, I thought you said bacon.
The end.
And I was like, oh no, is there a Great Vatican Bake-Off?
Oh my God,
the Great
can you imagine?
Papal Bake-Off?
They don't like to get their hands dirty.
No. Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah, that's true. So 2 things they lack as a country are taxes, because pretty much everything goes to the church, which is the government anyway, and an army. Instead of an army, they have a mercenary force known as the Swiss Guard. Yeah. The country that remains neutral has been providing protection for ages. And by ages, I mean since 1506. Mm-hmm. That's when Pope Julius II, following in the footsteps of many European courts at the time, hired one of the Swiss mercenary forces for his own personal protection. I don't think their armor or Renaissance-era uniforms have changed since. They are delightful and almost Harlequin-esque. Yep. But don't let them fool you. The Swiss Guard's role in the Vatican City is strictly to protect the safety of the Pope. Although the world's smallest standing army, again, they look strictly ceremonial, but the soldiers are extensively trained and highly skilled marksmen. And the force is entirely comprised of Swiss citizens between the ages of 18 and 30 that are at least 5'8.5" tall and have military training. Mm-hmm. I think the 5.5 feet tall thing is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, they all have almost 300 days, like 295 days of military training in Switzerland.
which is just such an odd thing.
Why do I know that?
There is a separately administered police force that is charged with the overall security of the nation's state, except St. Peter's Square, which is under the jurisdiction of the Italian police, because everything about the frickin' Vatican is confusing. In accordance with Article 3 of the 1929 Lateran Treaty between the Holy See and Italy, St. Peter's Square, although part of the Vatican City state, is normally patrolled by the Italian police up to but not including the steps leading to the basilica. Article 22 of the Lateran Treaty provides that the Italian government, when requested by the Holy See, and the Holy See is just another term for all the holy people, like the Pope and all his peeps.
See is from Latin for seat.
Okay.
The seat of the Holy Church.
There we go. So when requested by the Holy See, it seeks protection or prosecution and detention of criminal suspects at the expense of the Vatican. So basically, if you get arrested in the Vatican, you get processed through the Italian prison system, and then the Vatican gets the bill. The Vatican has no prison system apart from 3 cells for pretrial detention. People sentenced to imprisonment by the Vatican serve time in the Italian prisons, and again, costs covered by the Vatican. It's such a tiny country, though, so the guard and the police, it must be super safe, right? Negatory. The Vatican City actually has the highest crime rate in the world, listed at 1.5 crimes per person based on its just over 800 residents.
Damn.
These crimes, right? These crimes, however, are mostly petty theft and committed by some of the over 5 million people that visit the Vatican annually, with an influx of so many tourists. Sense. Yeah, pickpockets are bound to swoop in on, lift some cash while, people are so busy being awestruck by where they are.
Collection plates.
I don't even know if it's that. It's more just like pickpocketing people walking around. Still, it's such an issue that warnings appear all across the Vatican's website, letting people know who are visiting to be aware of, their belongings. We know about the museums and such. We'll cover those in other episodes for sure. It's impossible to just briefly touch on the museums and the libraries. And those are inside the actual building.
The Vatican
versus the town.
The group of buildings. It's what St. Peter's Basilica, the Papal Palace, and something else. I think there are 3 things.
Right. And the museums and library are part of the palace. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So what else does the Vatican have? Well, it has an observatory in Arizona.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's right. As Rome expanded, light pollution from the city made it increasingly difficult for astronomers at the Vatican Observatory, which is located like 15 miles from the city, at the papal summer residence in Castel Gandolfo to view the night skies. So the observatory opened a second research center in fucking Tucson, Arizona.
I mean, fair enough.
I did not know.
The desert is real dark.
Right, but I can't believe that I did not know that or never heard of it. The Vatican conducts, which is it's another thing that's a little weird to me too. The Vatican conducts astronomical research with the state-of-the-art telescope that sits atop Mount Graham in southeast Arizona. The fact that the Vatican is doing astronomical research is makes me giggle a little bit.
Are they looking for the end of the world?
Because you can't ask questions. I know. I was kicked out of CCD several times. And, they're not big on science.
Although I think they are cool with evolution, aren't they? Like, there are some weird things that are acceptable science-wise that you wouldn't expect.
I am not sure. I know that one of the times that I got kicked out was when I asked if Moses literally parted the Red Sea or if it was a metaphor. And
that's a reasonable question.
I thought so, but I was like, you don't question.
I mean, I was definitely told it was literal.
Yeah, I'm sure. Also, I forgot, one of the articles that I read basically mentioned that, I think Mount Graham, because of the telescope being there and it being the Vatican's, is actually, like, the entire thing is owned by the Vatican and not part of the U.S. It's a weird thing there. I'm like, that's
is
a
that
loophole
like embassies?
I think so. So the 1.8 meter Alice P. Lennon telescope and its Thomas J. Bannon Astrophysics Facility are known together as the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, or VAT for short.
Oh my God.
It's a Gregorian telescope observing in the optical and infrared situated on Mount Graham in southeast Arizona. It achieved its first light in 1993. VAT is part of the Mount Graham International Observatory and is operated by the Vatican Observatory, one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world, in partnership with the University of Arizona.
Fascinating.
So, right? I thought that, I mean, that's kind of fun.
With, like, Notre Dame and put it in the middle of a cornfield.
But nope, Arizona. Huh. Now, the country may not participate in, I don't know, the United Nations, but they do participate in the world's love of football, or soccer, as us Americans call it.
No way, they have their own team.
Just wait. The Vatican City national football team, they have male and female, is a football team that represents the Vatican City under control of the Vatican Amateur Sports Association. Headquartered in the Vatican's Cortile di San Damaso. The Vatican City Football Association was founded in 1972. Its current president is Domenico Ruggiero. Gianfranco Guadagnoli, an Italian, you think, is the current head coach. The team has been managed by Giovanni Trapattoni in the past. His first match as a manager was played on October the 23rd, 2010, when the Vatican City faced a team composed of Italian financial police. That's ironic. The team played its first match in 1985, a 3-0 victory against the representative of the Australian journalists. In 2018, the Vatican also created a women's representative team.
You know what this reminds me of? The number of civic organizations in New York City that have bagpipe corps. Like,
oh wow, yeah.
There are so many. Like the Supreme Court, this New York State Supreme Court system has a bagpipe corps. Obviously, the fire department has a bagpipe corps.
Yep.
Like, but every once in a while, you will just run into random bagpipe corps parades for no reason. Because there are just so many small bagpipe corps and so many civic organizations. So this sort of reminds me of that.
Well, and so in high school, I worked at an ad agency, and we had our own softball team, and we played other ad agencies. And it just makes me, like, I want to know.
But, like, company softball teams feel different than that. I don't know why they do,
right?
But like, I don't know. They feel they feel pretty harmless.
Kicking goals for Jesus. Yeah. Like, I don't. Ooh. Anyway. So, do you want to do a bit of shopping?
Oh, of course.
While you're there? Sure. You can visit they have a post office. There's the Vatican. It's the Vatican post office, the Vatican supermarket, the Vatican bookstore, the Vatican museum shop, the Vatican pharmacy.
And I bet that's a good gift shop, though.
Right? Ooh, I bet. Now, many actually call the Vatican pharmacy the busiest pharmacy in the world. It is across Vatican Square from the Domus Sanctae Marthae, where the Pope lives, and also near the Vatican Post Office. The pharmacy serves 2,000 customers a day. It is also the only pharmacy in the entire world that accepts foreign prescriptions, unless it's for birth control, of course. The Pharmacia Vaticana, which moved into a remodeled quarters in September of 2020, employs about 50 people. It was founded in 1874, at a time in history when the Pope was virtually a prisoner in the Vatican. Beginning in September of 1870, there was a dispute between the Italian government and the Holy See about the sovereignty of the Pope. As a result, successive pontiffs, starting with Pope Pius the Ninth, did not leave the Vatican confines until 1929, when the whole treaty was established. In the meantime, the Pope and cardinals living at the Vatican needed medications. Today, the pharmacy offers not only prescriptions, but also cosmetics and personal hygiene products, vitamins, and over-the-counter pain medicines from the U.S., as well as Germany and Switzerland. The inventory includes more than 40,000 items. The pharmacy also makes some of its own signature products in the cellar right beneath the store.
They've got witches.
Right, they do. It's homemade elixirs, including a quinine distillation, a cologne, anise syrup, and a dandruff cure.
So they want you to have some gin and tonic.
Right. It also makes its own soaps and lavender water.
Huh.
Also, because it is not subject to Italian pharmaceutical regulations, the Vatican pharmacy is able to bring new drugs to patients faster. The Vatican City state can purchase them directly from international drug manufacturers, and does so as long as the drugs have passed other nations' standards and approval. And it actually results in a great deal of savings, like up to 25%. To get a prescription filled, customers must have a recent medical prescription, present an ID, and also obtain a permit through the Vatican's registry office.
A prescription
drugs
permit?
And drugs can also be ordered by fax. Payment is cash, bank draft, or credit card. To speed things up, the pharmacy added robots to its warehouse facility 2
They
years
have
ago.
witches and robots?
Yes.
Wow.
I was agog because I would not have thought. But yeah, but also it makes sense that the Vatican would have some kind of hand in some big pharma money. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But it also seems like they are weirdly less into the big pharma money than I might expect them to be, given that they're passing along savings to people.
That's true. It's the whole thing, I will say.
I want to know if they take my insurance.
They probably do. Another thing that's a little odd about this little country that most countries don't have, they have a dress code.
Yes.
The dress code applies for both the Vatican museums as well as St. Peter's Square and St. Peter's Basilica. It's a basic dress code is for both men and women. Both need to cover their knees and upper arms. They prohibit wearing shorts or skirts above the knee, sleeveless tops, and low-cut shirts. Men must take their hats off before entering, whereas women may continue to wear theirs. Without following these guidelines, you will be turned away or suggested to buy a shawl to cover up, which, of course, is raised in price.
I've had that experience in Morocco.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Although I was given the implement to cover myself.
Oh, that's nice.
By a very sweet old guy who was not being judgy.
Oh, okay, that's good. Speaking of control, many do not know this, but the Vatican has its own full-blown media empire. And we're talking way more than coffee table books and Jesus Rules pamphlets. They literally have,
Jesus
their own
Rules
newspaper.
or Jesus Rules.
Okay. Both. So La Osservatore Romano, the Roman Observer, is published daily in Vatican City and is one of the most influential papers in all of Italy and the de facto voice of the Holy See. It doesn't stop there, though. They also have the Vatican Television Center, which started in 1983, and the Vatican Radio, which began in 1931.
Radio Vatican. I want to know what they play.
Oh, you can listen to it online. And obviously that's, which, I mean, I would understand them having, video and TV, like video and radio for like the Pope's, when he was at Wednesdays, I think he wanders into the square and does a sermon. He also does it's not a sermon because Mass. And then on Sundays, I can see them wanting to televise that or whatever, but yeah, maybe they televise the soccer games.
The sheer number of documentaries about or adjacent to the Pope that are on, the History Channel alone would indicate to me that they have plenty to put on the air.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy pants. I mean, and also, as a side note, it irritates me that, I'll get into it later, but it irritates me that they have no problem having like all these giant things, but you can't be a member of the United Nations. Like, I don't know. But this brings me to the the banking and finances, which I saved the rant-inducing until last. Like, this is the stuff that...
All right, I'm gonna brace myself.
Yeah, I will try to... I think the head cold is keeping me a little more lax or docile than I probably would be. The Institute for Works of Religion, IOR, is commonly referred to as the Vatican Bank, is a privately held financial institution located inside the Vatican City. It was founded in 1942 with the role to safeguard and administer property intended for works of religion or charity. The bank accepts deposits only from the top church officials and entities, according to Italian legal scholar Settimio Cariddi. Cariddi? It is, I pre-apologize to all Italians. It is run by a president, but overseen by 5 cardinals who report directly to the Vatican and the Vatican Secretary of State. But so little is known about the bank's daily operations and transactions that it has often been called the most secret bank in the world.
Cardinals, they're not elected, right? They're appointed directly by the Pope.
I think so.
Yeah, because they're the ones who actually elect the next Pope.
Yes, that makes sense. But it has been riddled with scandal over the last couple of years alone. Recently, Pope Francis instructed the Vatican entities to move all funds to the Vatican Bank by September 30th. That was of 2022. The Pope's rescript issued August 23rd clarifies the interpretation of a paragraph in the new constitution of the Roman Curia Predicate of Evangelium, promulgated in March. So, according to the Francis' rescript, financial and liquid assets held in banks other than the IOR must have been moved to the Vatican Bank within 30 days of September 1st, 2022. The IOR, based in the Vatican State, has 110 employees and 14,519 clients.
That's more than I would have thought.
Right? As of 2021, it looked after 5.2 billion euros, which is about 5.6 billion US dollars of client assets. While it's commonly referred to as a bank, like I said, it's technically a financial institute with no branches, working within the Vatican City, state, country, whatever you want to call it. So it Its clients include the Holy See and connected entities, religious orders, clergy, Catholic institutions, and Holy See employees. Basically, this order forced some entities that had Swiss bank accounts connected to some questionable dealings to move their assets to the Vatican Bank, allowing their funds to be very closely
get to have
monitored.
Swiss accounts still? Or
Ooh. Dun, dun,
I
dun.
feel a work of fiction coming on.
I could go deeper into the more recent scandals, but I'm already it's getting a little bit long, and it was important to me that I brought to you the utter bullshit that really seals my distaste. Okay. So the Vatican started out as a deal made with a fascist fucking dictator. So the evil origin story practically wrote itself. But it really didn't stop there. Some scandals, just some of the scandals that are connected to the bank, and I'm very briefly touching on these, include trying to buy fake securities from a mafia-linked counterfeit ring. In 1973, the U.S. Justice Department began looking into a potential role the Vatican Bank played in a counterfeit and stolen securities operation. According to an 18-month FBI investigation, New York mobsters were planning to sell counterfeit corporate bonds and stock certificates to the Vatican, a $900 million payment in 5 installments over several months.
Isn't the mob generally Italian themselves? Or, wait.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole history.
Catholic, also Italian, but I meant Catholic.
No, there's a whole history.
Don't rip off.
Yeah.
Don't rip off God. Come on.
Right. There's a whole. No, that was in cahoots with them. It was together.
Okay then.
Yeah, no. The Vatican was using the mob to.
We're laundering.
So the Vatican. Yeah, pretty much. A Vatican card. Oh, that's a whole one thing. A Vatican cardinal planned to use the fake securities as collateral in order to obtain financing. The counterfeit bonds would be undetectable unless the bank lost money on its investments and was unable to pay back the loans, which at that point then the Vatican would just claim ignorance of an outside scam.
Oh, good.
So when confronted with the accusation in a secret meeting in New York, representatives of the Vatican, of course, refused to answer any questions at all. The then president of the Vatican Bank, Paul Marcinicus, denied any wrongdoing, and the investigation could not come up with enough information to charge Marcinicus or anyone in the Vatican, because again, they keep on to everything, and it's, you can only go so far. Up next, we have using $5 million to cover up monks who were squandering donations, which sounds much more tame than it actually
squandering
was.
On
After hearing reports that a group of Pauline monks in Philadelphia were involved in a financial scandal, church officials discovered that the monks in question had spent almost $20 million in charitable donations on a life of luxury.
Well,
the monks, who would raise funds for religious projects, yet would spend the money on cars and personal expenses. Despite their high lifestyle, they also defaulted on $4.3 million worth of church bonds. The vicar general kept a mistress with church money and was taking half of the salary of his friends who were appointed to monastery jobs.
Oh.
Half of the monks left the order when the Vatican ordered them to turn over their televisions, stereos, cars, and credit cards. To hide the scandal, the Vatican Bank sent more than $5 million to cover the cost of the monks' defaults and pay back creditors. The hush money also helped avoid them being sued or facing criminal charges.
Wow.
Up next, we have laundering money for the mafia and other Italian elite. Because of its sovereignty, the Vatican Bank has the ability to withhold account information from regulators and authorities, basically fucking everyone. This secrecy has provided an excellent cover throughout history as the Vatican moved money here and there to gain illegal profits and power. Gerald Posner, author of God's Bankers, chronicling the financial scandals of the IOR, wrote, "It was not much of a secret that for decades Italy's elite had used the IOR to hide their money. One internal review estimated that there are approximately 9,300 accounts belonging to privileged citizens of Italy, compared to only 2,500 that met the bank's strict rules, meaning they had to work for them,
sketchy.
Be part of the thing." Yep. Some accounts were rumored to be proxies for the Spatola and Inzerillo crime families. In 1970s, the bank bought a stake in the Italian bank Ambrosano, which was led by the banker Calvi. For 2 years, the Vatican Bank moved money around Ambrosano's accounts to allow banks and companies to pass financial inspection. Then they'd withdraw the money right after the inspection and keep a cut of the sum. Ambrosano later crashed in a massive scandal, and the Vatican paid a $244 million settlement without admitting any wrongdoing.
Oh, good.
Calvi faced criminal charges, then died in a murder made to look like a suicide. Rumors swirled around who was responsible for Calvi's death, with possibilities obviously including the mafia or the Vatican. In 2009, an Italian journalist published a book based on hundreds of internal documents that were smuggled out of the Vatican Bank that proved fake charity accounts were created and instead used for political donations, laundering, and embezzlement. Even donations to real charity accounts fell into the mix and ended up disappearing. In 2012, 4 priests came under investigation for operating bank accounts for the mafia to launder money. And I could go on. That's just a tip of the mafia connection. The absolute worst and unforgivable offense is these motherfuckers made money directly off the murder of Jews during the Holocaust.
Oh.
A German officer admitted to having many wartime spies in the Vatican, one of them potentially being Nogara, the acclaimed and able financial advisor.
Oh.
During the war, Nogara began investing in Italian insurance companies, which, quote, developed into stakes that profited from the ongoing murder of European Jews, end of quote, Posner wrote. These companies made money by keeping all the financial assets from life insurance policies of deceased Jewish policyholders and refusing to pay for those still living. But because the Vatican was not a direct insurer, it was never required to pay restitution after the war.
Oh, fuck that.
Exactly. Many financial records were destroyed during the war, and the Vatican refused to access its own records. Therefore, the full scope of the scheme still remains unclear.
Oh, they can fuck right off into the sea.
It's not even that. That's just part of it.
Sea.
Meanwhile, the Pope at the time adamantly refused to publicly denounce anything the Third Reich was doing, even though the Vatican was one of the most informed institutions on the mass killings long before the Allies even discovered anything.
Don't they remember that Jesus was Jewish?
Right. The Vatican Bank hid billions in stolen wartime loot, and the church also aided and saved many Nazi war criminals after the war. Yeah, so that I knew there was that.
I mean, to be fair, so did the U.S. with regards to nuclear.
Nuclear scientists, but to actively.
That's
fucking
gross. Yeah.
Like, I'm just speechless. Like, how can you stand there and be like, I am a holy fucking person chosen by God and fucking do that?
Performed
like,
piety. That's gross.
It's disgusting. Like, so yeah, I am not a fan. In fact, I had, so once upon a time, I'll make this a quick thing, but it's pretty much, sums up my adult relationship with the Catholic Church. I was an operations manager for a company that had several group homes for the elderly, and one of the ones that was near and dear to me was an Alzheimer's unit. We had a woman who had moved in, and the family was like, she's a devout Catholic. Can we at least get a priest in like once a month to communion? And I was like, sure, we've got one that comes every month to see another resident. I'll just have him see her too. This priest refused. And he was like, she's not my responsibility. I go, what do you mean? She's like, you need to talk to her priest. I go, yeah, I would love to do that. But guess what? Her priest is in another Alzheimer's unit right now at another place. So she is displaced from her parish, which is 45 minutes away. No. And he's like, I go, I don't understand why you can't just, meet with her when you come to see the other resident. He was like, fine, I'll talk to her. By talking to her, like, he came in and she was a little hard of hearing. He saw the person that he sees everyone. He goes over to her in the dining room, and I could hear him from my office in her ear going, I don't know why they want me to talk to you. I'm not going to see you. You're not my responsibility. You need to find another priest.
What?
At which I waited for him. I waited for him outside. I told the staff, I go, I'm going to be outside. Don't listen.
Oh, I would end that man.
He walks outside, and I looked at him, and I said, how fucking dare you? And he said, language. I go, what do you mean language? I go, you're clearly no holy man.
You call yourself a man of God?
Yeah. And he was like, she's not my responsibility. She doesn't belong to my parish. I go, it's a really good thing that Jesus didn't operate on the zip code system, you motherfucker. You weren't chosen by anyone. You're not special. Anyone can do what you do. And actually, there's more that do it better. And he's like, you're a heretic. And I'm like, and you're an asshole. And guess what? Jesus probably digs me more than he digs you, because he would never pull some shit like that. He refused to come back to the building to see the other resident. I go, but she's a responsibility. She's part of your parish, motherfucker. Like, it was so hard to get any priest to come in and give last rites to my Catholic residents that were dying. It was impossible.
What
I had clergy members of other faith going, I understand that she's not Catholic. I'll slap a white collar on and pretend. Like, literally.
I mean,
it was so difficult.
That's an act of mercy.
Right.
Like,
it's bare minimum fucking compassion. Like, I don't understand. Like, what is your job if not to do that? And then he got in his frickin' Mercedes and drove off. I was like, are you kidding me? So I have a really hard time trying to uphold or believe or defend or do anything other than flip off an entire system of human beings that are so pompous and just drunk on power and thinking that they are better when they are not. One of the first times I got kicked out of confession, I was like, hey, because I was little, and I was like, hey, guess what? I talked to God, and he said I can just talk directly to him. Like, I don't need to talk to you. Like, I don't need you. And he was not fond of that. But it was the whole point. Like, dude, I don't need you to absolve me, because it's not about you. Like, I
don't need an intermediary.
So, yeah. So I understand that I am very...
though.
Shall I say feisty against the Catholic faith?
That's that's evil.
It is. I was so mad, and it's
imagine trying to explain that to your God.
Seriously, I was like, dude, like, good luck, good luck. I'm just laughing at you because guess what? I'm like, I am not an angel, but I'm a decent fucking person.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like. I would never pull some shit like that. Never. I would never, ever. And that's your job. That is your job.
And the Baptist Church is fucked up in a lot of ways, but
they would come in.
Yeah,
they would come in.
My childhood pastor, who, for the record, was actually a really, really intelligent, really wonderful man. But, the rest of the church, less so, and they also would eventually remove him. But there would never be a second, like, he wouldn't think twice. He would have driven hours out of the way. Like, I
wasn't even asking this guy to do this. I'm like, can you just take 2 seconds to stop over and administer the body of Christ to give her a wafer? You're already handing one out.
Yeah.
Just mind-boggling to me.
I think maybe what kind of blows my mind is, since there isn't like the whole pageantry of First Communion in the Baptist Church. So, basically when you are old enough to understand, generally speaking, you can take communion. And so, therefore, I was allowed to take communion at the Catholic church of a friend of mine when I would be over there for the weekends. But, like, why am I allowed to do that? And I'm probably not technically allowed, but I imagine that that particular parish decided it was fine. But, like, I don't even know anyone here. Why am I allowed to have those rights? When
and I should add, not
who's actually a devoted follower isn't like, oh man, I'm so mad at that guy.
Not all Catholic churches, right? Not all Catholic churches. Like
well, no, of course not. But that guy is an example of the worst of the church.
And there were several. I even called the Cousin Center, which is where basically old priests hang out that have like they have nothing to, like, they're at the point where they don't have a parish, or they're just old. I even called the Cousin Center to try to get one of them to come out, and they wouldn't. Like, so it's weird to me. Like, I went actually did you have to do a confirmation retreat, and the one for my church that my parents grew up in, was on my 16th birthday, and I was like, no, no, like, I already don't want to do this.
World of absolutely not.
Right. So I got to go on my friend's Catholic church on their confirmation retreat. We watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It was amazing. Like, it was the most chill weekend. Like, they were very cool. Like, not all Catholic churches, not all Catholics.
No, and not all congregations
but the
are
head
the same.
of the beast is... But just like not all Americans, but Trump. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the best analogy that I can give. Like, I am not...
I mean, just the cruelty of that man.
Right. And again, I have to stress, mass amount of other priests that for not just that woman, for other, like, people. I had a resident who was Catholic, actively dying, on hospice. Like, the death rattle was coming up. I mean, and all of the priests at her parish were on sabbatical in Chicago. And no one. I'm like, you don't have, like, a sister church that you can send somebody? No one. And I'm like...
But you build...
I swear to you, it's so hard for me not to cry about this. These people were actively dying. They gave their life to your religion, and you cannot come and give them that.
The closure they think they need.
I mean, seriously, like, I don't care. Like, there's no reason why you can't find somebody to come and give them that
There's
comfort.
no excuse for that level of cruelty.
So, yeah. I mean, and again, not all priests, but I mean, it was
enough.
It was an ongoing issue I had. It was an ongoing issue that I had no matter where I worked.
God,
like,
that's awful.
If we had people that were passing away, they were Catholic. It was so hard, and I'm like, God, and I just, and the people that, you know, like, it's so easy to believe that it is fucking corrupt as hell, and that they do launder money for piece of shit people that, you know, because they don't care. I mean, what religious, if you have that much money and you are not using it to help the people that participate devoutly in your faith, or even not, just, I mean, like, what is the you can't take that shit to heaven. You can't. Like,
no, and if you think you're going to heaven, how are you going to explain all that?
Seriously, like, you got a lot of explaining to do. Like, you're going to meet the wrong angel, man.
Yeah. Yo.
And that's, but yeah, so.
Yeah.
That's my little rant.
Yeah.
Which brings us to...
Oh, God. The weekly.
The wicked way to die.
Oh, no.
Catholic. She's Catholic, apparently.
Pope Hammer. Mine is Pope Hammer.
Yours is Pope Hammer. I put having the Vatican pharmacy robot give me the wrong meds.
I wish the Vatican pharmacy robot would give me any meds. That would be...
There you go.
That would just in the family of.
Do you think the Vatican uses FedEx? Do they have their own? They have their own everything else.
My
goodness.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, do you want to be spooky, internet friends?
I don't know.
I promise not to cry and rant at you too badly.
Oh, no, you're allowed.
If so, you can find us at Bones and Bobbins on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the social medias. Or you can just pop on mybonesandbobbins.com.
Yes. And please don't forget to rate and review this podcast because it pleases the internet gremlins. And that's how we show up in recommendations so that other morbid souls can find us.
Bring forth the morbid souls!
Yes, but not the evil ones.
No, And on that note, let us leave you with some advice that you should never forget. Lock your doors.
And don't run with scissors.
or a Pope
Or
hammer.
a Pope hammer. Or the shears needed to cut out the Swiss Guard uniforms. Or your damn white collar sticking out as you're running away from a parishioner that actually needs you. Okay.
Seriously. Or those giant incense orbs, which I do very much appreciate.
Those are cool.
Catholics.
I wonder how many people have died by way of incense. What are they called? They have a name, but whatever.
I just call it the orb.
Yeah.
I wonder how many times one of those he's misjudged how long the chain was and just knocked somebody out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It smells good, though.
It does smell good. All right, we need to wrap it up.
We're wrapping it up.
All right, bye.
Bye! Each episode of the Bones and Bobbins podcast is written and researched by Haley Pearson Cox and Natalie Hoyce. Our music was composed by Loyalty Freak Music. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bones and Bobbins. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, or check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts so you won't miss a minute of our strange and creepy content.